What's up guys, it's Jinx and Drac. You know, they say that people look like their dogs, and I think that that's wholly untrue in the case of Jay and I, but in this case I think that we do have something in common, which is that we're both sorely in need of grooming right now, and the pandemic has made that more difficult for both of us. That said, you know what we weren't expecting needed a little update, a refresher, a facelift, if you will? How about the Dart Zone Spectrum, which was one of the best flywheel blasters of 2020? Why'd they change the color? Now I want to be clear, I'm not complaining here. I have no idea why they decided to make a painted red edition Spectrum, but I approve. I mean, I think that everything should be red and gray. It's one of my absolute favorite things about the Dart Zone Pro line as it exists on Target. I think that that's a really handsome colorway. This is not the same red, I do want to be clear. If you take a look at that colorway over here, you'll note that that red is a little deeper and that gray is a little bit darker. Actually, the gray is the same. My bad. The gray is the same. The Pro Red is definitely a little bit deeper. I would say that this is kind of more of a neon. Well, luckily they're durable, right guys? This is like a paler red, and it doesn't look bad. It definitely maintains a very vibrant toy silhouette on the Spectrum. I've done so much work over at Foam Pro Shop making this a lot cleaner looking that I honestly forgot how ridiculous the nose looked on these stock guys. But when I saw this one out and about, I absolutely had to pick one up because, I mean, come on, it's one of the best blasters of last year, except now it's in my favorite color. So even though it's a little flushed out, I figured we would unbox it, take a look at it aesthetically, and then of course, see if we couldn't use one of our upgrade kits over at Foam Pro Shop to tune it up, make it a little spicy, a little special. So I'm not the biggest fan of the scope or the rail attachment, although it is nice that the rail attachment does match. The plastic there is matched. The original one in green also matched, I believe, but I don't know why they did this. I don't know if they changed suppliers. I can tell you that unlike other toy companies, they haven't changed their suppliers too terribly bad. This one smells fine, the cardboard and the blaster itself. It appears that the quality of the plastic is still quite good. Like this is, I mean, it's a Spectrum. It's a Spectrum that they changed colors on. Now again, I don't know why they changed colors so soon. Normally it takes at least a couple of production cycles to change the color on a blaster, and that's why I'm so surprised. And when I say production cycle in the case of Hasbro, I mean about 2 years, and when I am talking about virtually any other blaster company, it's like, you know, 8 to 12 months. But this is unusual. It's a very pleasant surprise, certainly, but an interesting time to refresh it. I like it. I think that it looks pretty good, and I'm looking forward to taking it downstairs, cracking it open, showing you guys the insides, and seeing if anything's changed there. Then, of course, messing with the insides a little bit and getting into the full review. So first things first, you're going to have to take out all the Phillips head screws, pop the battery tray off, and get the shell open. Crack it in half. As soon as we're inside, we're going to see the internals. Go ahead and pop the muzzle rail combo off and get it out of here. This thing's bad. It's really designed for foreign obtrusions, but we don't need it. Then remove the battery tray, remove the mag release, kind of start getting this down to the base shell. You're going to need to take out the entirety of the trigger assembly, including the rev trigger, then all of the electronics should sneak out, and then you pop out the flywheel cage. The flywheel cage is going to be held in by 4 Phillips head screws. Make sure you save those for later because you're going to need them to install your Magilla. This wire channel helps kind of guide the wires from the flywheel cage back towards the rest of the blaster, and it's a good idea to save it and use it later. Quick snip and you can get the entirety of the electronic circuit out of there, which is going to be useful since we're replacing the entire thing. Look at how wimpy these motors are. Look at how basic this cage is. If you're going to be doing a light paint job, you're going to want to approach the other side of the shell and pull out the jam door as well. Then I'm popping out the side panels on both sides of the blaster because I'm going to replace them. Oh yeah, special edition end war motors. Let's go. 4 tiny screws that come with your Magilla cage are going to let you lock those motors into the cage. Then you're going to want to firmly press your Twilight wheels onto the motor shafts, making sure that they're evenly spaced off of the shafts. It's time to start soldering. Proper soldering technique should be both physically strong and also electronically sound. I like to use a trident method to get mine really secure. When you're done, your flywheel cage should look something like this, except not exactly like this because I'm a dum-dum and my polarity is reversed, but I fixed that later on at the battery terminal. So I didn't have time to do my usual painting procedure, but I knew I wanted to do something a little bit special to this, so I did a black to red fade using black vinyl dye and like dusting it back the front. It's nothing special, it's really simple, it's really easy, and I think it looks okay for the 5 seconds it took. Gave it a little time for the shell to cure, and we're going to use these rubber attachments, put them back on the posts so that they're going to serve as kind of a buffer for our new Magilla flywheel cage, which is going to get installed more or less the same way that the other one did. First, we're going to pop that wire channel guide up just so that we can sneak our wires through there and lock them down safely onto the other side of the shell. Then we're going to lock in our flywheel cage, just making sure that all of these screws are evenly tight so that the flywheels are properly aligned with the exit barrel. Then back goes the wire guide, and we have to start pulling the wires down through to the grip. How you do this is up to you. I like to kind of sneak through the original channels, use as many of the original clips as I possibly can. Since I'm using 18 gauge threaded silicone wire, which is what you should be using too, it's pretty easy to sneak them through and snake them through the original channels. Then down here I've got a brand new 3D printed switch plate. I'm going to attach my switch into that. First I pop off one of the leads, then I solder the hot line from the flywheels into it, and then I solder a fresh one out of the switch over to the battery terminal. Pretty easy. You just pick any screws from your screw jar and sink those in. They're self-tapping, so they'll go into the PLA part really easy. Then you just kind of puzzle the original rev switch in and underneath that so that it interfaces with your new 21 amp switch in clicky fashion. Throw the other side of the shell together by putting the jam door back in place and then screwing it in. This uses kind of a compliant mechanism to fit. There's no additional parts. Then we're going to replace our magazine release. I'm using the stock one. I don't know if I'm going to always use that. Then we start putting our trigger assembly back in. This is of course the dart pusher. Sneak that in so that it fits with the rev switch, and then we're using our brand new 3D printed long thrower arm for half-length darts. These kind of sit together like this, and then you push them into place and use the flat cap screws to get them exactly where they need to be. Don't be afraid to add a little bit more grease here if your parts have dried out. Then you're going to want to snip out all of the ribs in your battery tray, open it up for your wire leads, and make sure that there's plenty of room for whatever LiPo you're choosing to install in your blaster is. Put the battery tray back where it goes, and then you're going to take the rest of your Spectrum kit from Foam Pro Shop. You're going to go ahead and attach the kind of muzzle brake to the muzzle itself. There we go, that looks pretty sharp, and then we're going to affix that using the screws that originally held the rail together to the rails, making kind of one complete system to replace the original, and that should just drop right into place. The screw ports are designed to line up with the original screw ports. Maybe need a little bit of a reaming out if they happen to be a little too tight, but then you can put your entire shell back together, stopping only when you realize that you need to cut out the ribs on the other side of the grip to accommodate your new larger switch. Then you can cut your leads to length. I like to leave about 3 inches on the outside, strip the ends of the lead, and you can solder in your XT60 connector for your battery. Don't forget to add heat shrink here. It makes everything look a lot cleaner, a lot nicer, a lot more professional. Also prevents shorting, so it's both a good practice and it looks better that way. Don't forget to put your battery tray back on, and then maybe some special panels for a little spice. Alright guys, so we're trying something new. I'm actually sitting down over here, and in the process of putting this guy together, we determined that we wanted to change up just a few things. So one thing was, I really decided that we needed a shortened mag release for this guy. It was important to do something that was a little low profile, so that when you have this inserted and you're doing whatever your conversion is, whether it's a Talon mag conversion or whether it's the Pro conversion, you can throw this in here and you have a dedicated magazine release for your Talon mag, and you're not liable to like clip this. So we wanted to make something low profile, a little toothy. We also went in and we redid and made our own version of the pusher. We wanted something that was a little more consistent, a little bit cleaner. And realistically, we just wanted the ability to mess with those tolerances ourselves. So we made our own version of a half-length pusher, and that's pretty much it. We've got our panels over there. We've got our trigger set up so that this is very snappy, very clean on that 21 amp switch. Go ahead and throw this in like that. And we should have solid half-length performance now. We could add any stock to this. This is just a Thingiverse part that like lets you add a stock. And when we do an outdoor chrono segment after this, we'll be able to talk more about that. But I wanted to point out that we're pretty happy with this. I think that the performance of it is going to be a little lower. Obviously, you have more time to accelerate in those twilight wheels over the course of a full-length dart than you do over a half-length dart, which is why a lot of these people wind up doing dual-stage kits. And FPS wasn't like our biggest concern. We wanted to maintain the accuracy and the tight grouping that the twilights provide while still getting half-length adaptability so that you can carry a lower loadout if this is something that you want to do. And honestly, the Spectrum is so affordable and our kit for it reasonably priced such that this is a pretty all-encompassing build. If you do it yourself, you can come in way under $100 for your half-length flywheel blaster that should have reasonable performance. We're going to go downstairs to take it, put it over the chronograph now, but I did just want to mention these are going to be available on foamproshop.com. The mag release will come in a kit with the mag release and the pusher for half-length darts, and we're going to try and find a switch plate that we're going to put in there as well so that you kind of have everything you need for the guts. And then you've got everything that you need for performance in one kit, and then everything you need to go half-length in another kit entirely. So let's take this outside, let's put it over the chronograph, let's see what we got. All right, guys, so I threw a stock on. I'm actually not super stoked about the stock adapter from Thingiverse, but the rest of the kit I'm pretty happy with. That's a clean drop, as long as you're willing to find it. This is pretty clean. I went ahead and I cut down some waffle tips. Normally I use AF Pros as the standard for pretty much everything right now, but I remember somewhere along the line the waffles being really good for flywheels, and so I wanted to try that out. I could get more information. I think I have a box of like the kind of cruddy jet darts out right now, so I could use those for range firing in just a second. But let me put a few over the chronograph, see what kind of results we get out of the waffle tips first. So 141, 142, duplicate 142, 138, 128, 136, 143, 129. So part of that is that I cut those down with like an X-Acto. It looks like I have a worker at the bottom. And the darts just aren't super duper consistent in terms of their body length. But it looks like you can expect anything north of like HVZ performance and south of like super stock. That spread is definitely not indicative of what they would do with consistent darts, especially since cutting them down at different lengths, the pusher was just a wee bit funky. I'll just be honest with you guys. I tested the waffle darts because I can't find my AF Pros right now. I have a bucket of them, and we've been doing a lot of work over here in preparation for a pretty big consulting engagement that we have coming up, and that's just the realest of the real, is that I have no idea where my bucket of darts is. So here's some, these are actually, they're jet darts, but they're the game face variety of the jet darts. Let's put a few of those over. At least they'll be consistent, although they are short. They're shorter than the other darts. And in being a little bit shorter, I think that they'll be worse for flywheels. Also, the tips aren't really great for flywheel concavity. So it looks like the spread gets significantly more consistent as your darts get more consistent. That's pretty good. Theoretically, this should be way more accurate than a stock Spectrum due to how the flywheel cage is laid out and how the geometry works. All right, so I went in and I grabbed a full thing of bamboo darts. I think that that's just going to give us way more consistency with the pusher and everything. And I want to put a few down range to see if this guy would be appropriate for SCNC, as SCNC kind of opens up. You're in late May is I think when we're going to try and start doing SCNC wars again. So all said and done, I think that this is a pretty solid representation of what the Spectrum is capable in terms of the half-length arena. It's definitely a lower FPS. The Magilla cage rips laser beams with full-length darts, but slows it down just a little bit. That's still using a 2S. That's still using Fang revamped motors. You could change that up if you needed more or less performance. But overall, I think that the addition of, you know, the switch and the circuit this way with the pusher and the mag release definitely gives you a slightly different take on the platform and means that you might not have to take two different kinds of ammo into battle depending upon what you do. So that'll be live on foamproshop.com along with the rest of the kit. I highly recommend checking it out if this is something that you're looking to do to your Spectrum. I'm kind of regretting that I murdered out the back of this now, that I've got a black stock on it, and I don't necessarily recommend this piece off of Thingiverse, although since I featured in this video, I will link it down in the description box below as well. I think that one was free for personal use, so that should be fine. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully this helps you with your Spectrum mod guide. It serves as kind of an installation guide for the kit, but also just a general kind of flywheel guide. I think that it's important every once in a while to do these. If you watch us back as far as like my Stryfe mod guide or even the Stryfe builds before then or a Rapid Strike build, the general technology and principle here doesn't change over the years, but as the blasters change and the hobby changes with them, I think that it's important to refresh some of those core skills like clean soldering, using heat shrink, checking your polarity, etc., and so forth. So that's just my take on it. That's my Spectrum mod guide. Hopefully it helped you. If you see anybody looking for help on how to install either my parts or realistically any parts for the Spectrum, just trying to take it up to that next level, feel free to link in this video. It's my hope that it's comprehensive and clear. If you enjoy content like this, please throw a like on this video. Leave me a kind comment. Like, I make these as kind of like a love letter to the hobby. I made my Stryfe one as a love letter to the hobby. I'm trying to help kind of educate and inform people as to how to make their builds better. And this content just performs very, very poorly on YouTube. YouTube is not rewarding this specific style of step-by-step educational form factor content the way that they used to when I started my channel. I'm gonna keep making it because I'm stubborn, but your support on content like this means an awful, awful lot. So thank you so much for watching. As always, much love. Blast on, Drac out.